There are moments in life when a woman grows weary of running after what refuses to be caught, when she feels the exhaustion of pouring energy into someone who never truly turns back to meet her gaze. That moment of clarity is not weakness, it is the spark of transformation. She begins to wonder, what if the secret to drawing love closer isn't in what she chases, but in what she chooses to stop giving away so easily? What if her deepest magnetism has nothing to do with effort, but with the energy she embodies in silence, in presence, in the pauses that speak louder than words? The truth is, real attraction does not come from begging or convincing. It comes from a woman who understands her power, not in drama or demand, but in her steady control over her emotions. This is the quiet fire that Stoic philosophy once revealed, the kind of mastery that is neither rigid nor cold, but calm, intentional, and endlessly magnetic. Seneca once wrote that to master oneself is the greatest power of all. That truth, when carried into the heart of a woman, turns into an invisible force that men cannot explain but cannot resist. Your presence begins to speak long before your lips ever move. The gaze you hold, the stillness you maintain, the subtle rhythm of your breath. These are the symbols that linger in a man's psyche, far more than any grand gesture or carefully rehearsed line. Carl Jung himself observed that the male unconscious is drawn not only to beauty, but to mystery, intuition, and the aura of emotional depth that radiates from the feminine. When a woman embodies her presence fully, she becomes not just a person, but a living symbol. And symbols are not to be explained, they are to be felt. Men may admire a beautiful face, but they fall in love with what they feel in the presence of a woman who sees them in ways the world does not. A woman who does not rush to fill silence with noise, who does not scramble to prove her worth, but instead leans back into the strength of her being, radiating calm confidence. That calm is not passive, it is electric. It unsettles, it provokes, it awakens something ancient in the male heart, the urge to chase what cannot be fully possessed. Imagine sitting across from him, his words carrying a hint of provocation. Most women might rush to defend themselves, to clarify, to make sure they are understood. But you, anchored in yourself, remain silent for a breath, let the tension linger, and only then you respond. Not with defensiveness, but with the softest smile, a look that refuses to break, a phrase delivered with intentional weight. In that pause, you do something remarkable. You show him you are not at the mercy of his words. You own the moment without force, and that mastery unsettles him more than any outburst ever could. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In the realm of attraction, this strength is irresistible. It makes you unpredictable. A woman who cannot be easily shaken, who does not rush to compete, who knows when silence is stronger than speech. She is the kind of woman who lingers in a man's mind long after she has left the room. It is not suppression of your emotions that creates this magnetism. It is the alchemy of channeling them. If you feel desire, you allow it to flicker through your gaze. If you feel anger, you turn it into a silence heavy with meaning. If you feel tenderness, you let it unfold in deliberate grace, never as uncontrolled overflow. This is not repression, it is refinement. It is choosing to express from a place of depth rather than impulse. And in that choice lies your undeniable power. What men find unforgettable is not always what is said. Often, it is what remains unsaid, the pauses that leave him wondering, the mystery that keeps him awake, replaying your words. Subtext is your silent weapon. It is not just about the sentence you speak, but the vibration beneath it. Jung understood that in every interaction, unconscious forces are at play. You are never just talking. You are stirring emotions, awakening archetypes, summoning something in him that even he cannot explain. And that is why some women are remembered, while others are forgotten. It is not about speaking more, showing more, or giving more. True seduction lies in giving less, but giving it with so much intention that it cannot be ignored. A single phrase, spoken slowly in a low tone, after a lingering silence, can do more than 1,000 words said in a rush. Something as simple as, "There's something about you I can't ignore," holds far more weight than "I like you." The former provokes curiosity. The latter ends the mystery. This is not manipulation. It is art. It is the art of being fully in control of yourself while allowing just enough space for him to lose control. And when a woman learns to inhabit this balance, she stops chasing and starts attracting. She no longer acts from need, but from choice, and her presence becomes not just attractive but unforgettable. There is something quietly devastating about a woman who no longer needs to explain herself. She is not in a rush to be understood because she knows her presence speaks louder than any explanation ever could. A man may hear her words, but what he remembers is how those words made him feel, the way they lingered long after the conversation was over. This is the essence of emotional language. It doesn't demand attention, it creates it. Most women try to secure affection through excess, talking too much, giving too much, laughing too loudly, as if the more they offer, the more valuable they will seem. Yet the truth is the opposite. A woman who knows her worth gives less, but every word and every gesture carries the weight of intention. She is not desperate to prove. She is not scrambling to fill silence. She understands that silence itself is an instrument of attraction. Sometimes it is the pause that makes the music unforgettable. Jung observed in Symbols of Transformation that the male unconscious is drawn not to what he fully understands, but to what eludes him, what awakens him without surrendering itself entirely. Desire is born in that tension, the dance between what is seen and what remains hidden, between the urge to conquer and the fascination with freedom. That is why a woman who masters her emotional presence is never cold. She is not distant for the sake of being distant. She is, instead, profoundly alive yet untouchable, warm yet contained, open yet mysterious. This paradox unsettles a man in the most intoxicating way. Ask yourself, when you look at him, are you looking from need or from choice? Are your words spilling from anxiety or from a place of quiet confidence? The difference may not be visible, but it is deeply felt, and men, especially the emotionally perceptive ones, sense it immediately. What unsettles them most is not a woman's beauty, but her mastery over herself. Because when you know how to hold back, when you allow space for him to wonder, when you reveal pieces of yourself deliberately, instead of all at once, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is the heartbeat of seduction. A predictable woman is safe, perhaps even comforting, but she does not ignite pursuit. A woman who can shift between tenderness and restraint, between playfulness and silence, awakens a man's imagination. He begins to crave not only her presence, but the mystery of what she might reveal next. Words, when spoken from this energy, carry a resonance beyond meaning. They become emotional triggers that ripple through the psyche. A phrase as subtle as, "You have a way of distracting me, and you don't even realize it," plants a seed in his mind. It is not a compliment. It is not surrender. It is a riddle that he will turn over again and again. He begins to wonder, what exactly does she mean? How much power do I really have over her? Or is she the one holding power over me? The ambiguity is what pulls him deeper. But make no mistake, these words only work when they are spoken from your center. If they are delivered out of insecurity, they crumble into cliché. Emotional language has no power if the woman behind it is not anchored in herself. This is why so many fail. They learn the phrases but not the presence. They try to play the game without mastering the silence between the moves. A sensitive man can always tell whether a woman embodies what she says or merely repeats it. What makes a phrase unforgettable is not its cleverness but the energy that drips from it, a steady gaze, a pause that stretches longer than expected, a softness in tone that feels like a secret whispered against his soul. These are the details that turn a simple sentence into a haunting memory, because what seduces him is not the phrase itself, it is the emotional experience you wrapped it in. Jung wrote that what is not made conscious often appears as fate. When you awaken something in him that he cannot fully define, he begins to mistake that pull for destiny. He feels moved, stirred, even unbalanced, and he cannot quite explain why. That lack of explanation is exactly what keeps him coming back. A woman who offers no clear answers becomes a question he cannot stop trying to solve. And so, the game of attraction is not about strategies or rehearsed lines. It is about cultivating the kind of inner presence that makes every word, every silence, every glance feel alive with subtext. It is about being so anchored in yourself that you do not need to ask, "Do you like me?" You already know. His body language, his restless curiosity, the way his mind drifts back to you in quiet hours, those are your answers. When you embody this, you stop operating from the frantic energy of trying to be chosen. Instead, you become the chooser. You no longer chase because you understand something men rarely admit. They are drawn not to the woman who needs them, but to the one who both fascinates and unsettles them. And nothing unsettles a man more than realizing he cannot predict or control the effect you have on him. This is why restraint is not weakness, but strength. This is why pauses matter more than explanations. This is why speaking less with greater intention creates more desire than endless chatter. You are not there to convince him. You are there to provoke him gently, silently, powerfully. And when you master this balance, you do not just attract men, you transform them. You awaken parts of them they did not even know were waiting to be stirred. There are certain phrases that act like keys, slipping quietly into the subconscious and unlocking desire in ways logic can never reach. They are not shouted, they are not overused, and they are never spoken carelessly. Instead, they are delivered like a secret, as if you almost didn't mean to say them, as if they escaped from a place deeper than reason. And because of that, they strike where no ordinary compliment could ever touch. But these phrases are not about manipulation. They are about awakening. They are the verbal shadows of your presence, echoes of the deeper energy you already embody. Without presence, they are empty words. With presence, they become unforgettable. Imagine, for instance, leaning in slightly, holding his gaze, and saying, almost as if confessing to yourself, "There's something about you that throws me off center. I can't even explain it." What you've just done is create a paradox in his mind. On the surface, it sounds vulnerable, yet beneath it, there is power. Because what you are truly saying is that he has the rare ability to shake the balance of a woman who is usually grounded and unshakable. That knowledge makes him feel unique, chosen, significant, and significance is the fuel of masculine desire. Notice the effect. It is not a declaration of love. It is not flattery. It is ambiguity. You've handed him a riddle, and men are wired to chase what they cannot fully solve. This is why such words linger in their minds. It is not about giving answers. It is about opening questions. Another moment of subtle impact comes when you smile softly, maybe during playful banter, and say, "You have a way of distracting me, and you don't even realize it." Do you see the brilliance hidden in this? You give him power, but not entirely. You let him know that he affects you, but you also suggest that he is not even aware of how much. That mixture of flattery and challenge sends him spiraling into curiosity. He begins to wonder, if I already distract her without trying, what more could I do if I tried? That thought alone keeps him coming back for more. But perhaps the most daring of all is when, after a charged silence, you look at him and say in a calm, low voice, "If I kissed you right now, you wouldn't be able to resist." You are not asking for a kiss. You are not pleading. You are making a statement. You are anchoring yourself as the one holding the frame. In that moment, you force him to imagine it, to feel it before it even happens. And that image, that emotion tied to a picture in his mind, becomes unforgettable. Jung once wrote that when emotion is attached to an image, it embeds itself in the unconscious with unshakable force. That is exactly what you are creating. But here lies the caution. These words are not to be thrown around recklessly. If you use them without mastery, if your tone wavers, if your eyes dart, if your energy is restless, they collapse into gimmicks. The magic is not in the phrase itself. It is in the silence before and after. It is in the steadiness of your gaze, the certainty in your tone, the stillness in your body that says, "I am not asking, I am declaring. Without that, the spell is broken. This is where so many women sabotage themselves. They rush to use these tools without cultivating the foundation beneath them. They say the right words but from the wrong energy, and the man feels it instantly. Because desire does not respond to need, it responds to presence. Timing, tone, and intention, these are the trinity of emotional language. A phrase said too soon, too fast, or too nervously loses all its gravity. But when it is released slowly, like a ripple in still water, it travels deep into his psyche and leaves an impression that cannot be erased. These are not pick-up lines. They are subtle psychological arrows, and they must be handled with reverence. This is why a woman who has cultivated calm within herself, who has chosen to move from self-possession rather than anxiety, always holds the advantage. She does not seek validation. She does not beg for reassurance. She knows her worth does not come from how he responds, but from how deeply she inhabits herself. And from that place, every word becomes more powerful, every silence more charged, every glance more magnetic. Remember this: what makes a man chase is not clarity, but confusion. Not answers, but questions. Not certainty, but mystery. If you explain yourself too much, you dissolve the spell. If you give everything away, he no longer has anything to pursue. The women who are remembered for years are not the ones who overshared, but the ones who left him wondering, what exactly did she mean? Why can't I stop thinking about her? When you speak with subtext, you allow him to fill in the blanks. And the human mind, when left with blanks, cannot resist filling them with imagination. That imagination is what keeps him hooked. He does not chase you because of what you said. He chases you because of what you didn't say, because of the possibilities you left hanging in the air like perfume he can't wash away. So ask yourself, when you speak, are you rushing to be understood, or are you allowing space for him to wonder? Are you explaining yourself to be liked, or are you revealing just enough to be unforgettable? The answer to those questions will determine whether you are remembered as a fleeting encounter or as a mystery he spends years trying to unravel. Desire is a fragile flame. It can be ignited in an instant, but it can just as quickly be smothered by unconscious mistakes. Many women, without realizing it, sabotage their own magnetism, not because they lack beauty, intelligence, or depth, but because they act from the wrong place, from need instead of abundance, from anxiety instead of calm. One of the most common mistakes is speaking from urgency, the restless energy of wanting to be liked, chosen, or reassured. This energy is never hidden, no matter how carefully you dress it in words. It leaks through your tone, through how quickly you reply to messages, through the way you rush to fill silences. Men can feel it even if they cannot name it. And when they sense need, their desire begins to fade. Because masculine desire does not thrive on what chases, it thrives on what challenges, what unsettles, what sparks curiosity without demanding attention. Another mistake lies in misusing powerful phrases. Too often, women discover these subtle tools and throw them into text messages or casual conversations without timing, without tone, without the emotional gravity that makes them work. A phrase spoken out of context, or without the presence to sustain it, becomes hollow. It turns into a cliché. And men who are even slightly intuitive can feel the difference between a woman who embodies her words and one who simply repeats them, hoping for magic. Equally destructive is the habit of overexposure. In the name of authenticity, some women spill their emotions too soon, mistaking vulnerability for emotional overflow. But vulnerability is not chaos. It is not unloading every wound on the first date, nor using pain as a shortcut to intimacy. Vulnerability, when true, is chosen. It is measured. It is offered with awareness, not poured out in desperation. A man may feel compassion for a woman who cannot hold herself together, but compassion does not ignite desire. Desire is born, in contrast, the woman who feels deeply but chooses when and how to reveal it. That choice is power. That restraint is magnetism. And then there is perhaps the most subtle yet most devastating mistake, fearing silence. Many women rush to explain themselves, to justify every emotion, to fill every gap in conversation. But silence is not emptiness. It is tension. It is mystery. It is the sacred space where a man projects his own desire, where his imagination awakens. When you fill every silence with words, you rob him of the chance to lean in, to wonder, to feel the weight of your presence without distraction. Silence, when mastered, is not your enemy. It is your greatest ally. The truth is, every one of these mistakes, urgency, misuse of language, emotional overflow, fear of silence, comes from the same root, disconnection from the self. When a woman forgets her own center, when she abandons the calm of knowing her worth, she acts from lack, and lack is not magnetic. But when she reclaims her center, when she grounds herself in presence, something extraordinary happens. The very same words that once fell flat now carry depth. The same silences that once felt awkward now feel electric. The same glances that once went unnoticed now leave him restless, searching, chasing. It is never about the strategy. It is always about the energy behind it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Perfect tranquility consists in the good ordering of the mind within your own inner kingdom. That is the secret. When your inner world is ordered, the outer world bends to it. You no longer chase, you inspire pursuit. You no longer beg, you provoke. You no longer scramble to be chosen. You radiate so much self-possession that only what is true dares to stay." Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the integration of all your shadows, impulses, and emotions into wholeness. A woman who has walked this path does not hide her fire, but she does not let it burn out of control. She channels it. Her desire becomes a gaze, not a demand. Her anger becomes silence, not chaos. Her tenderness becomes strength, not weakness. She is no longer driven by impulse. She leads her emotions instead of being led by them. Such a woman does not need strategies. She is the strategy. Her pauses, her subtext, her calm, her rhythm. These are not tricks, but extensions of who she has become. And when a man encounters this, he does not simply meet a woman. He encounters a force. He feels it in his body, in his thoughts, in the way her absence makes the air feel thinner. He cannot explain it, but he cannot escape it. Men do not fall in love with women because they try harder. They fall in love because, in her presence, they feel something rare, more alive, more curious, more unsettled. They feel pulled into a mystery that refuses to explain itself. And because the mind hates unfinished stories, he keeps coming back. Desperate to finish the story she began with a single glance, a single phrase, a single silence. This is the essence of emotional magnetism. It is not about dazzling him. It is about haunting him. It is not about impressing him. It is about leaving him restless. It is not about chasing. It is about becoming the experience he cannot forget. There is a kind of power that cannot be bought, borrowed, or faked. It is the power of a woman who has stopped trying to be liked and has chosen instead to fully inhabit herself. She no longer begs for attention because her very presence commands it. She no longer fights to be chosen because she has already chosen herself. She no longer chases love because she has become love-rooted, luminous, undeniable. And in that energy, men do not simply notice her, they orbit her. This is the paradox of true attraction. The moment you release the urge to grasp, everything begins to gravitate toward you. Stoicism teaches us that freedom lies not in controlling others, but in mastering ourselves. And when a woman lives by this truth, she becomes rare. She is no longer swayed by every comment, shaken by every rejection, or flattered by every compliment. She listens, she smiles, she considers, but her center remains unbroken. That is the kind of woman who stirs a man not just to desire, but to devotion. Carl Jung often wrote of archetypes, the timeless energies within the human psyche that speak louder than reason. A woman who embodies calm, mystery, and intention awakens one of these archetypes in men. She becomes not just a partner but a symbol, a mirror of his own unconscious longing. He may not understand it, but he feels it. He feels it in the way his pulse quickens when she enters the room. He feels it in the restless silence after she leaves. He feels it in the haunting way her words replay in his mind long after the sound has faded. But here is the truth that most overlook. It is not the phrases themselves that matter. It is not even the silence or the gaze. It is the woman behind them. A sentence becomes unforgettable only when carried by a presence that believes it. A pause becomes magnetic only when it is held by a woman unafraid of being still. A glance becomes haunting only when it emerges from eyes that have nothing to prove. Without this foundation, every phrase is empty. With it, every word becomes a spell. And this foundation is built not through tricks, but through inner work, through the daily practice of returning to yourself, of asking, am I acting from fear or from choice? Am I speaking from lack or from presence? Am I giving to impress or am I offering from fullness? These questions shape the woman you become, and the woman you become is the real secret behind why men chase, why they cannot let go, why they remember you when they have forgotten all the rest. Attraction is not theatrical. It is not in the fireworks. It is in the subtle, the quiet, the unseen. It is in the way your silence unsettles him. It is in the way your pauses make him lean closer. It is in the way your restraint forces him to imagine. True magnetism is not about dazzling. It is about leaving behind a question he cannot stop trying to answer. A woman like this does not worry about competition because she understands that true presence cannot be copied. Clothes can be imitated, phrases can be repeated, but presence, the way your energy inhabits the room, the way your stillness carries weight, the way your words vibrate with subtext that cannot be replicated, it is uniquely yours. And that is why it is irresistible. Men do not pursue women because of logic. They pursue them because of how they feel in their presence. When a man feels more alive around you, when he feels challenged but also safe, when he feels both confused and drawn closer, he does not think about whether he should chase. He simply does. Because desire is not a decision, it is an instinct, and your energy is what awakens it. So the next time you wonder what to say, how to act, or what strategy to use, remember this: there are no magic words without a magical woman behind them. And a magical woman is not born by accident. She is shaped by the choices she makes every day to hold her silence instead of explaining, to choose her timing instead of rushing, to rest in her worth instead of chasing validation. She knows that what is meant for her will arrive, not because she begged for it, but because her presence called it silently, irresistibly, without demand. That is the essence of unforgettable feminine power. It is not noise, it is resonance. It is not performance, it is truth. It is not desperation, it is depth. And if, as you hear these words, something in you stirs, something remembers the power you once abandoned or forgot, then know this: it was always there, waiting for you to reclaim it, waiting for you to stop running outward and start standing inward, waiting for you to embody the truth that real attraction is not in chasing, it is in becoming. So step into yourself. Speak less, but mean more. Pause longer, but with purpose. Let your silence be as heavy as your words. Let your presence haunt him long after you've gone. Because men forget faces, they forget gestures, but they never forget the way a woman made them feel. And the woman who learns to master that is not just remembered, she is pursued. And if these words have awakened something inside you, if they reminded you of the power you've always carried but maybe forgotten, then don't let it fade. Stay with me, because this is only the beginning. Subscribe to HeartSync X, share this with the women who need to hear it, and let's keep walking this path together, deeper into truth, deeper into power, deeper into the kind of love that doesn't chase but transforms. Because the world doesn't need more women who beg to be seen. It needs women who embody presence so strongly that they can never be forgotten.